Welcome to IPR Radio. I'm Sanjay Mukherjee. Today we speak to Mr. Tarun Sridhar, former Secretary, Ministry of Fisheries, Animal Husbandry and Dairying, Government of India. With his vast expertise and rich experience in shaping policies, Mr. Sridhar will bring invaluable insights into this conversation. After the break.
In the orchestra of life, each creature plays a part. At Sapience, we see the web of life, where the health of animals reverberates through ecosystems and societies. With innovative technologies, we're redefining the future of agribusiness, sustainably enhancing productivity and profitability. We don't just dream of a better future, we make it. Food safety, quality, and security. These aren't just words, they're our mission. We're Sapience. And we're committed to healthier animals because we believe in healthier living. Be a part of our melody, and together, let's compose a better world. For more information about our products and solutions, log into sapienceagri.com.
Good morning, Mr. Sridhar, and welcome to IPR Radio.
Good morning. It's my pleasure to be here with you.
It's a real pleasure for us to have you on the show today.
Thank you.
Sir, you've played a pivotal role in shaping the policies that govern the animal husbandry and fisheries sectors in the country. Today, we request you on this show to critique some of the key policies, give us examples of some successful models followed in other countries, and shed some light on the path ahead for these industries. Our first question to you, sir, today is how would you describe the current state of animal husbandry and fisheries policies? And what do you see as the key strengths and weaknesses of these policies?
Okay, thank you for this opportunity, Sanjay, and I'm glad that we are having this discussion on a sector which oft has been neglected or generally pushed to the margins. Many people who have interacted with me in formal and informal gatherings in the past would recollect that I'm very fond of quoting from Charles Dickens' A Tale of Two Cities when I describe the livestock and fishery sector in the country. It's one of the most beautiful opening lines of any work of fiction. He says, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was a spring of hope, it was a summer of despair. So this is very aptly describes the livestock and fisheries sector in our country. How do I draw this analogy? We are huge. We are not only big, we are the biggest in the world as far as the sheer size of our livestock sector is concerned. But at the same time, we are also the smallest in terms of the productivity of our livestock sector is concerned. In terms of production, we are either at the top or near the top in almost each and every livestock product. But in terms of the value and quality of that product, we are somewhere in the bottom of the pyramid. So this is a very peculiar situation and a very unique characteristic of our livestock. Now, having said that, let it not be a criticism or disparaging the livestock sector in our country. The beauty of the livestock sector in this country is that this humongous production of livestock product is all contributed by extremely small and marginal livestock farmers. Barring the poultry subsector of the overall livestock sector, which to a great extent is vertically integrated and organized, albeit there may be some inadequacies in our integration model, but it is by and large organized. Rest of the livestock sector is characterized by very, very small livestock holders. And these small livestock holders are contributing to our livestock production, which becomes the biggest in the world. I think milk is the shiniest example. And again, I compare our milk production to the Milky Way in the galaxy. And so I appropriately said Milky Way. You open a half-liter polypack, that polythene pack of milk or 1 liter polypack of milk. That half liter would probably be having drops from hundreds of cattle owned by hundreds of farmers. That is, these small farmers owning 1 or 2 cattle. The typical holding is between two, it's less than 3. Average holding per livestock farmer or in terms of cattle and buffaloes is between 2 and 3. It is less than 3 and slightly more than 2. And the average production is about 3 to 4 liters a day. It is this farmer whose cow and buffalo is bringing milk to your home. So it's like how the Milky Galaxy is comprised of millions of stars. That is what your milk packet comprises of. So it is these farmers who have made us the biggest milk producer in the world and biggest by volumes. I think the latest data says that we produce more than 210 million tons of milk per annum. This was the production has been during the last year. Number 2 in terms of global production is United States of America, which is less than 100 million tons. So number 2 is half of us. So it's like you have just beaten them by we are miles ahead of them. But having said that, what is the value which this milk is generating in terms of the livelihood, in terms of the income of the farmers? That is the area of concern. So this is the background which I thought. And this context must be set when we try to understand the livestock sector in our country. Second very peculiar feature of the livestock in our country, a feature which does not exist anywhere in the world, barring a few countries of South Asia and barring a few African countries, is the mixed farming systems in our country. We are predominantly an agrarian society, everybody admits it. A very large population is dependent upon more than 50 to 60% of our workforce is dependent upon agriculture and allied activities for their livelihoods. Mixed farming means that you don't find a farmer, hardly any farmer, who does not own livestock also. Similarly, you don't have many livestock farmers who do not do crop farming also. So because there's a mixed farming system, there's a very close symbiotic relationship between the agriculture sector and the livestock sector, which necessarily does not exist in the Western world or in the countries which do industrial livestock farming or the industrial livestock production. So because we do not have industrial production, it is a small farmer. So typically a small farmer would have 1 or 2 acres of land, 2 or 3 cattle and buffalo, a few poultry birds, a few goats, etc. So that this mixed farming system keeps the hearth burning in the household. Now you can say LPG burning in the house and also giving the farmer the income to bring up his family. So this is how the livestock sector in this country gets characterized. Because of this, the livestock sector is dominated by very sound and robust traditional knowledge and practices. And these traditional knowledges and practices have held our livestock sector in very, very good stead. And now we have a support of very, very sound and very advanced research institutions of the government, as also some very, very few in the non-governmental sector also. Very strong support of the ICAR network, that is Indian Council for Agriculture Research, which has probably you name a field and name a discipline in livestock and fisheries, and they have a research and development institution to give the backup to our livestock sector. So this is how I would characterize the livestock sector in our country. Now, I think I'm taking more time than you gave me, but still, you mentioned policies. Now, policy has to be something very dynamic, and it has to keep evolving, and especially keep evolving in today's world, wherein the geographical boundaries or the political boundaries of the country do not carry as much weightage and relevance in terms of economic activities of the countries as they used to in the past. In the past, we always used to talk in terms of self-reliance or small units being self-reliant, independent economies. We had the model of village being self-sufficient, etc. Now, this model does not hold as good as it did in the past in terms of an economic philosophy. Now, there's a huge interdependence of trade and the movement of goods. And typically, livestock being a part of the food production system, there has to be a greater interchangeability of goods and the products between countries or between states, etc. So that is where we need our policies also to be dynamic and evolving and responding to the situation very fast. And not only responding, even anticipating how things will develop, so that our policy keep our livestock sector competitive. And that is, I think, where we are a bit lagging behind. Why we are lagging behind is I'm not justifying it. But just we have to understand that we have a historical legacy. When we became independent in 1947, we did not have many models of governance to emulate, especially in sectors like livestock sectors, which were way down in the governance and political priorities. So what we did was, because of having a society, having a country which was always grappling with the deficiencies or inadequacies, especially deficiencies and inadequacies in terms of food availability, our entire focus was on enhancement of production. So our focus of the entire food sector, be it wheat, be it rice, be it milk, etc., was more milk, more wheat, more milk, more wheat. It was production, production, production. So that is how we have grown with. Unfortunately, today also, when we should have now branched away from production to productivity, from absolute quantity to quality, from numbers or volume to value, that shift has not really happened. And that is, I would say, while our policy in terms of enhancing production and in terms of ensuring that we become globally very competitive in terms of our size of the livestock and in terms of our absolute numbers of production, and we remain at the top or near the top, quality and value is one issue which our policies now need to address. And lastly, in response to your first question, when I say quality and value, I say it has to be computed in economic terms of return per unit effort. The economic term, it is the return on your investment. So here, investment, I would say, is not only the financial investment which a farmer has made into livestock, but also investment in terms of his own labor and in terms of his own commitment. Because here, the typically livestock, the labor of the farmer is something we don't compute. So I would say per unit effort, for every 1 liter of milk a farmer is producing, how much effort in terms of his financial and other resources is going on, and what is the return the livestock is giving him. So we have to think in terms of economic terms, we have to think in terms of commercial terms, and we have to think in terms of livestock as a viable alternative vocation and occupation, not just merely a source of livelihood. I hope I have been able to respond to your initial query posed to me.
Absolutely, sir. Thank you. So, sir, in your opinion, what are some of the key objectives that should be prioritized in the animal husbandry and fisheries policies to ensure that these sectors have a great future ahead, a promising future ahead?
Okay, let me say, irrespective of how government responds or how the public sector responds, whether our policies are good, sound, or maybe sometimes not good enough, my understanding of the livestock and fisheries sector is that future is very bright and good. Why do I say that? I say that future is good and bright because it has captured the imagination of several of urban entrepreneurs also. It is no longer considered only to be an activity confined to rural areas. So people in the urban areas, young boys and girls, and some IIT, IIM graduates have also gone into the dealing with or venturing into enterprises dealing with livestock sector products. Having said that, it is only limited to certain niche areas in terms of value-added products or in terms of creating markets as far as livestock sector is concerned. Now, in terms of public policy and which should address the major challenges that is the livestock sector to ensure that livestock sector continues on its growth path, which it has attained so far. You are aware, and I'm sure everyone else who would be listening to this podcast or maybe interacting in some other way would know that if you take the entire omnibus agriculture sector, it is only the livestock subsector of dairy, poultry, fish, goatry, etc., which has been consistently recording an impressive growth rate of between 6% to 11 to 12%. Your meat sector is growing at 12%, poultry has grown at 8% or so, milk has always grown at 6%, whereas the crop husbandry, that is the pure agriculture, has by and large been stagnant around 2%, 2.5, 3. And if 3 has been considered to be highly impressive. So livestock sector has has proven to be a backbone of the larger agriculture sector in terms of ensuring consistency in growth. There never has been setback as far as the growth rates are concerned. But the biggest challenge right now of our livestock sector is that we have not been able to create effective value and supply chains in our livestock sector, leading to huge wastage and loss. Wastage is food waste is typically a Western phenomena, where the phenomena of a surplus or affluence, wherein you can afford to buy or hold more than what you require and it goes waste. But food loss, as much as 1/3 of the food which we produce gets lost. Either it gets lost completely on account of non-availability of a good, effective supply chain, or it gets lost in terms of its value because of the delay between its harvest and its reaching the table. And loss in value could be complete loss in value, or it could be a partial loss in value. It could be a loss in terms of monetary value. It could be loss in terms of nutritional value. So first, the biggest challenge of our livestock sector is, be it milk or milk products, be it fish, or be it poultry or meat or eggs or any livestock product, is that we have the market. Here is the market with the consumer. Here is the production center. How to bridge the gap and the distance between them, not the physical distance, the distance of time. And during that distance of time, when it takes 1 day or 1 hour or 1 month or 1 year, how do we maintain the quality of the livestock product which is that? One. Secondly, the challenge before us is that when we talk in terms of value and supply chains, we are typically thinking in terms of processed products, processing the raw product into something else, just to increase its shelf value. Well, good enough. Value-added products do fetch a very high price in the market. But at the same time, we also have our traditional. Sorry, just a second. We also have our traditional, what we call wet markets. You see, food is just not something you eat to stay alive. Food is also a very integral part of your culture. Right now, we're discussing livestock. If we were to discussing the tradition and culture of India, I'm sure food would be a very important component of that discussion. And one of the very critical traits and characteristics of our culture in terms of food is freshness. Even today, Sanjay, I don't know whether you do it or not. In my house, even although I have worked in the dairy sector, everything, the pasteurized milk which comes from the market is boiled before it is consumed.
Absolutely.
Now, if you talk to a dairy technologist or a dairy specialist, he'll say it is ridiculous. You are actually converting your milk into powder, partially powder, and then consuming. But yeah. I'll give you a small snippet. A long time back, it was, I think, in the year 1998 or 99. That time I was performing the role of a trainer of civil servants. And I had taken a group of civil servants from all across country to UK for a training in the Civil Services College of UK. So there was a group of 18 people. And on day one of their stay in the hostel there, each had his own independent room, etc. 15 out of 18 rooms, their kettle had gone bad, the kettle which heats the water, etc. So we complained that all the kettles are not working. None of the 15 rooms kettles are not working. Something seriously wrong. And then they couldn't find the reason why it has happened that all the kettles suddenly stopped working. Then they found that our people had boiled milk in that. The kettle is meant for water. It was not meant for milk. Who eats milk in a kettle? But we cannot imagine consuming milk without it having been boiled. So this is ingrained in our culture. In fact, if there were not strict municipal laws against keeping cattle, etc., in big towns, people would still prefer going to the milkman delivering fresh milk. Even I live in Gurgaon. Even in a place like Gurgaon, I find in many of our neighbors' houses in the morning a milkman comes and gives fresh milk. So what I would say is, when we talk in terms of preventing food loss, we also have to reinvent these wet markets and our concept of freshness and ensure that our product satisfy the consumer in terms of what he demands. So 1/3 of the food getting lost is something I would say it is criminal proportions in a country like India. So that is another thing which we need to address in terms of our policies. But here it becomes a challenge because it is not only the Ministry of Fisheries, Animal Husbandry and Dairy which comes into picture. It is also the Ministry of Industries, Ministry of Food Processing, etc. So we need a very strong coordinating mechanism in the government wherein the issues and challenges of the livestock sector get addressed in what to say in conjunction and in a harmonious coordination vis-a-vis the cross-sectoral ministries and departments. That is the second biggest challenge. Now, once you address this, you come to the issue of quality. Now, you see, recently there was an apprehension that on account of some free trade agreements, once the dairy products from abroad start coming in, it would seriously dent our dairy. Now, that time I used to question. I said, okay, their apprehension and this fear is well founded. If, say, New Zealand or Australia or European countries or USA, they start exporting milk products in India, it would pose a serious threat to our dairy. But why can't our dairy be competitive in terms of why should they feel threatened? That we are the biggest producer of milk in the world. So why should US and New Zealand not feel threatened if our milk products are going there? Why they are not threatened is because in quality our milk products will not be able to match or which will be acceptable to the consumer in New Zealand or consumer in the European Union. So once we address this issue of addressing food loss, so that means you address the issue of food loss, then you can start in terms of enhancing the quality both of your raw material and enhancing the productive quality of your value-added product or the converted product of milk. Quality is the second issue which we need to address very seriously. Thirdly, how do you address value and quality both is traceability. You see, the discerning consumer today, even in urban areas in India, is asking, I know many people asking, is my milk coming from this stray cow who's roaming around on the road and eating polythene and whatnot? And I know this cow is owned by someone in the nearby village. It just comes here in the evening, during the day, chews on whatever gets the garbage and etc. goes back. Is my milk coming from that cow? Now, in organized dairies, and I think typically between 20 to 25% of our milk is organized. In organized dairies, we have been able to effect traceability up to a collection center. If the milk which has gone into this particular pouch has come from these 3 or 4 or 5 collection centers, or maybe one collection center. But that collection center itself may be having milk from 100 cattle or 100 buffaloes, etc. So unless we have this traceability, we will never be able, no matter how great the quality is, we will not be able to certify that quality and will not be able to ensure that quality to the consumer unless we establish this good traceability. I'm very happy to inform that in terms of creating this database of animals, but through that information network of animal health and productivity, I think nearly more than 25 crore animals have already been, database has already been created. Okay. Once this database of the entire livestock, including cattle, buffalo, yes, in the first phase it was to be cattle, buffalo, but after cattle, buffalo, even if goat, sheep, etc. is created, thereafter we should ensure that since we have data of each and every animal, this traceability to an animal of your milk, even the ice cream you are consuming or a chocolate you are consuming, you should be able to say this chocolate contains milk of a cow so such and such in such and such district owned by such and such farmer. And this is the kind of traceability which exists now all over the advanced and the developed world. And this is the kind of a product assurance, quality assurance, and this is the kind of integrity of the product which gets certified. This is another issue which would be this thing. Lastly, which I would say is the most critical and important thing is we need to reduce the size of our livestock and increase the productivity. Today we are producing, when we take pride in the fact that we are producing more than 210 million tons of milk. And then we also have a very smug smile on our face that USA is less than 100 million tons, but way behind us. But look at the number of cattle, number of buffaloes which are used to produce this 210 million tons of milk. Perhaps in terms of even average productivity, I'm not talking in terms of great productivity, even in terms of average productivity, 1/4 the number of cattle and buffaloes should be producing this 210 million tons of milk. Now, if we do that, Look at the transformation of the economics of livestock sector and production. So you see, very interestingly, whenever you talk of livestock sector, you see any government, it start with we produce 210 million tons of milk, we produce 15 million tons of fish, we produce so many billions egg. We never talk in terms of we produce milk so much these many rupees or dollars. So we have, our policies have totally now shift the focus from the size of production or the quantity of production to the value of production.
Value.
Farmer should be told, don't tell ki I have got a cow, I have got one cow and it gives me 5 liters of milk. You say, I have got a cow, it gives me 500 rupees a day. That is how once you have this kind of a paradigm shift in perspective and in terms of approaching livestock sector, I think it could it could actually transform into what I always say, a profession of hope, a vocation of choice. A young boy and girl, when you ask a question, what do you want to become when you grow up or when you finish your education? He or she, instead of answering, I want to become a doctor, I want to become an engineer, I want to become a civil servant, we say, I want to become a livestock farmer. I want to open a poultry farm, I want a dairy, I want to do aquaculture. And industrial poultry models are existing in this country. Aquaculture, especially shrimp aquaculture, even freshwater aquaculture. You have entrepreneurs and huge enterprises which are doing well. So I think these are some of the challenges and issues which we need to address in our policies. And lastly, one thing which is the livestock sector in terms of policies and interventions and research has by and large been government and public sector driven.
Right.
Government needs to engage the private sector along. And Sanjay, you know much better that in terms of poultry sector, the kind of knowledge, the scientific knowledge, the management knowledge and expertise which is available in the private sector just does not exist in government. It doesn't even exist in our ICAR network of research, etc., the kind of experience and expertise which your big poultry houses have. So we need to establish this good blend of exchange of knowledge and involve the private sector in terms of shaping our livestock policies.
We'll be back after a short commercial break.
That is a wake-up call against the growing shadow of antibiotic resistance over our poultry, our health, and our world. To fight this menace, Excelsio, a natural antibiotic-free performance enhancer, marshals an army of bacteriophages, each engineered by evolution to engage a specific bacterial adversary. Excelsio uses a cocktail of bacteriophages that protects your flock against various strains of Salmonella, E. coli, Clostridium perfringens, and Staphylococcus aureus. Excelsio is more than a product. It's our shield against antimicrobial resistance. It's our stand for a safer, healthier future. For more information about our products and solutions, log into sapiensagri.com.
So I'll just lead this question into the next discussion, which is what are some of the potential strategies or initiatives that can be implemented to improve animal welfare standards in the industry? Because that's quite key today, while maintaining productivity. We talked about productivity. So while maintaining productivity or improving productivity, how can animal welfare be incorporated in our sectors?
That I had written an article for your magazine on this animal welfare issue. It's a very, very sensitive issue, and I'm a bit wary of expressing my views very forthrightly. See, well, first we have to define what we mean by animal welfare. Now, animal welfare, is it a sentimental issue? Or is it purely a matter of principle in terms of some minimum standards in terms of how we deal and how we treat our animals? Just an aside, I was reading, just in the morning, I was just glancing through papers. It was non-serious reading. I think I was reading online. So there was a news about a celebrity, not a big celebrity. I won't name the celebrity. There was just a news item about a celebrity, a small-time celebrity, that she announced separation from her husband. And then there was a statement that's a very amicable separation. We have been together. It's only a good statement. We spent some good times together. We cherish them. However, we need to go ahead, and now things are not working out. So we have decided to separate amicably. And of course, we will have joint custody of our only child, Mayak, which is our dog of 4 years. Okay. Now, one thing is, it is so touching that here they are separating, but they are very concerned about their dog. Now, this is one level of animal love. There's another aspect of animal love in our country is that, you say a word about the holy cow, or you it could lead to bloodshed. But then nowhere in the world are so many stray cattle as they exist in our country. Is it animal welfare? Is it the love for the animals? It is animal welfare, or it is actually something which is antithetical to what animal welfare means? Animal welfare is very important. And in times to come, the consumer is also going to be guided by how the animal has been treated. I would say that animal welfare, if you go to our rural areas, village areas, the way people keep their animals, the traditional farmers, especially the elder generation, it is seen to be believed the kind of love and affection they have for the farmers. You see, traditionally, it used to be considered in rural societies a sin to be selling milk. Milk was only for consumption at home and for to be shared with other things. So we have our own. Now, what has happened is there have been certain standards of animal welfare, or I would say there have been some standards of livestock management in terms of how you keep animals, which fall in the domain of animal welfare, which have somehow, as far as some section of urban liberal animal rights people are concerned, have become the ultimate standards. Now you have to understand whether it is animal welfare or whether it is human welfare, or any regulation for that matter, how strong or weak the regulation will be, or what kind of regulation would be, it evolves with the evolution in the society, and it evolves with the human progress and the economic progress. The industrial revolution of Europe had scant respect for child rights or labor laws or any kind of thing. But now they have graduated to a stage where they say, well, you can't even keep poultry in battery cages; they have to be kept in the open. Good enough. We also have our customer. If he wants that he should have eggs from the free-range birds, well, there's plenty available in the market. But now you have to understand that in terms of animal welfare, do we adopt the standards which probably say Norway or Holland have adopted, or do we adopt our own standards, considering our own understanding of what animal welfare is and considering our own constraints of production? That is one. Having said that, animal welfare cannot and should not be compromised with, but it has to be approached with a high degree of pragmatism. I remember we had a very serious issue once a very, very a prominent political leader who also was that time a cabinet minister in the Union of India, raised a major issue with me. I was the secretary of the Ministry of Environment in terms of what was called was a blatant violation of animal welfare issues, and in terms of ornamental fish. That ornamental fish is kept in aquariums. So fish doesn't have place to move, etc. So there should be complete ban on the trade of ornamental fish. Now, one thing is, logically you can argue, yes, fish is not supposed to remain in a small, say, 2 feet by 1 feet or 3 feet by 2 feet aquarium in a limited area and spending the entire life going up and down. Logically, it sounds good. But I would say if we start imposing these kinds of standards of animal welfare, we probably may be shutting down the civilization. We may be shutting down the civilization. I agree. Logically, it is correct that nature did properly. Nature, I don't know. I don't really understand nature much, but probably nature did not give milk and to the cow and buffalo for the human beings. It gave milk for the cow's own this thing. Now, can the entire history of civilization is taming the nature? If we had not tamed the nature, so probably you and I would not have been sitting here with the arts. There would have been no what we call the human progress. So human progress has come with a cost, and one of the costs probably is the animal welfare issues. But then you have to also agree that we have graduated from being a hunter to keeping the livestock for meat. Now, whether a hunter was a greater votary of animal welfare or a poultry farmer is anybody's question. Animal welfare, yes, but we need to define the standards of animal welfare. We had this issue of battery cages.
Yeah.
Some people went to the high courts, etc., and the battery cages, the high court decided battery cages were banned. Now, you please understand, if suppose today there's a blanket ban on battery cages as far as poultry is concerned, perhaps our poultry will take more than a decade to again bounce back. And today, from being the second or third largest producer of eggs in the world, we may be reduced to the 100th or so. And eggs which a common man could get for 4 to 6 rupees in the market would probably be 60 rupees or so in the market. So we have to understand these dynamics of animal welfare also. So there have to be standards, but standards have to be established, taken into consideration our own internal realities. And let us not be hypocrites. Let us not be hypocrites about any animal welfare. People who talk of who I would say no criticism to anyone whose heart bleeds for animals, etc. They also keep any number of dogs in small flats, cooped up in a 20 story flat. And when I go for my morning walk, I find that there are hundreds of. Then they ask their servants to take them out in the morning, and there's a scant respect for that animal who you say is a part of the family. So, and I would say that if the animal welfare activists would do great service to this country if they start keeping cows as pets. At least some problem of stray cattle will be solved. Plus, we are also fortunate in India. If I don't know how many people know about it or not, and I have a heart to write about it. The smallest cattle in the world belongs to India. The Punganur cattle of Andhra Pradesh, from Chittoor district of Andhra Pradesh. Now that Punganur cattle is as small as a dog which you keep at home. Plus, it is much cuter than a dog, and then it gives milk also, and it gives, considering its size, it gives 3 to 5 liters of milk a day. Punganur cattle, and its milk is very high in fat. The fat content in Punganur cattle milk is as high as a buffalo. So start keeping that. That would be a great thing. So this is what my take on animal welfare is. Sorry if I may be sounding to be hostile to this concept of animal welfare. No. It is not. It is not. I'm just saying it is practical. Genuine animal welfare would be managing your entire livestock sector in a very, very scientific and a professional manner. That would be the biggest service to animal welfare. I'll just give you a small example. You see. This was, I think, in the year 2018, during my visit to the annual session of the World Animal Health Organization. We had a dialogue with several of these Middle East countries. And basically, the short of the entire discussion was that during the Eid, etc., there's this sacrifice of live animals, etc., as a part of the religious ceremony. So I said, rather than looking from here or there, we could be a good source of supplying goats to the Middle East world. So we had it was a very, I thought it was one of the good initiatives. So we started the export of live goats from India to the Middle East for this thing. Oh, there was such a hue and cry by animal rights activists, etc. I think only 1 or 2 shipments could go, and thereafter the whole thing was stopped. Now, okay, perhaps the animal rights activists had a point that our goats were being sent there to be slaughtered and whatnot. But in any case, that goat would be slaughtered either here or there. But look at while protecting animal welfare in quotes, whatever that animal welfare meant, look at the kind of damage you have done to the farmers, whose lives and economies could have been transformed. That here is true. He's belongs to a migratory or a nomadic tribe. He just manages to stay afloat with a few goats, etc. Now his goats are an export commodity, and this is the kind of return he could get. And probably over a period of time, we could have captured bigger markets in Islamic countries, etc., where there's a huge requirement during certain periods. Similarly, we could start doing poultry of Turkey, etc., only for the export markets, and during Christmas, flood the world with the turkeys there. But so animal rights and animal welfare issues have to be balanced with the practicalities of livestock management. I hope
Right, sir.
I've given
That's very interesting perspectives, I would say. Very, very interesting perspectives. So, given the dynamic nature of this animal husbandry and fishery sectors, how do you envisage the future of these industries, and what policy interventions would you suggest, particularly in this Amrit Kal?
See, as I've already said, I'm very clear that the future is very bright. However, what we need to guard ourselves, especially the government and the people who are involved in the policy making, is that world over, these sectors are extremely dynamic and they're moving very fast. And certain developments are taking place to which we are not reacting adequately or not reacting fast enough. One. Secondly, in fact, ideally, what we should do is that before a development takes place, we should have anticipated that and done a scenario building and looked at it. I'll give you a small example of shrimp. Now, look at how dynamic the situation and how fluid the situation has been. Till the year 2010, maybe 9-10, we were producing only about 70,000 tons of shrimp per annum. And now we are producing nearly 1 million tons. Number 9.5 lakh tons. So it's been nearly 800 to 900% growth in 1 decade. We were not even the first 50 big shrimp producing nations in the world at that point of time. But we became the biggest shrimp producer in the world. No, that is where we committed the biggest mistake. We said we have become the biggest, and we kept patting ourselves on the back. We have been pushed to number 2 by a country as small as Ecuador. Why it has happened? During this period, when you see, our problem is in our entire governance system, we are doing everything on a mission mode. Here is our mission. So when our shrimp was in doldrums, we took certain decisions to revive it. Very good decision in a mission mode. We revived it. And thereafter said our mission is complete. Whereas the other countries, they kept experimenting. Our mission is complete. Okay, how can we improve the species? How can we improve the breed? How can we increase the shelf life of our shrimp? How can we give the consumer a better product? We kept saying we are the best, we are the best, we are the best. So now we are facing a serious crisis in terms of the markets. Secondly, we also were very happy with the export market. We said, well, whatever we produce gets absorbed in the export market. We didn't realize that volatility in the market of Baltimore in USA is going to affect the farmer in Bhimavaram in Andhra Pradesh. This is something we did not foresee, etc. So now we are facing this kind of a crisis. Now, why this is happening is, number one, not anticipating enough, not doing proactive planning. Second is government and industry both working in silos. They are not engaging with each other. I'm many times surprised, and you are a witness to that. In many of these industry meets, etc. For instance, we met in Calcutta in terms of discuss various issues of poultry and what could be the adequate responses in terms of policies, strategies for the roadmap for future poultry, etc. But the representation from the government is not there, or it's a lip service kind of a very formal kind of representation without any seriousness. Recently, I participated in a very, very highly engaged kind of discussion in terms of the crisis the shrimp sector was going on and how to come out. Now, there was a lot of churning of ideas and what is to be done. Very extremely good suggestions and a roadmap was prepared for this thing. But who is to take it forward? The government. There's no one from there. So this engagement between the government and industry is very, very, very critical. Also because in livestock sector, unlike several other sectors, it is the private individual, it is the industry bodies, etc., which are repositories of greater knowledge and experience than the scientists and professionals who are manning the policy positions. That is something which we need to do in utmost seriousness. Shrimp, I only gave example, even in terms of our dairy, etc. Dairy, like typically what happens is whenever there is a glut in the market, and there is not much offtake of milk or milk products. Typically, the big companies or whoever has the muscle, Amul or some other, they convert the surplus liquid milk into powder milk or ghee or something to store it. Now, but at the end of the day, the conversion and storage also has a cost attached to it.
Sure.
And so you can't be holding on to the inventory many times. But when the inventory gets beyond the manageable limits, they approach the government to give them some subsidy to export it. Then government gives them export subsidy or an export incentive to export it. So that means there is something wrong in terms of our competitiveness. So while we may be sitting in complacency that we are the biggest, these are the threats wherein, despite being biggest, it could be the sectors which are our strength could actually work as setbacks in terms of our economy is concerned. Plus, we need to also address the issue of our cultural dynamics playing a role in our management of these sectors. Now we have an issue in terms of the religious beliefs and the social and cultural beliefs attached with cattle. Having said that, so we need to address the issue of a large number of unproductive cattle. The number of unproductive or less than optimally productive cattle in this country is much bigger than the productive cattle. So our cattle, instead of becoming an economic asset, is also becoming an economic liability in terms of that. So we need to have very adequate and appropriate strategies to address this issue also. One of the strategies adopted, which was a very good initiative by the government of India and needs to be supported, was sex-sorted semen, so that only female cows. But now it cannot just be one-off intervention. It has to be now done at a mass scale and taken to its logical conclusion. But after taking logical conclusion, it also has to address the issue of the natural imbalance it may create, that you only have female calves, you don't have bulls at all. So whether a population in the long run would be, so all these things need to be well thought of and addressed. And lastly, I think I would come back to that, addressing the issue of supply chains. At the end of the day, it is food production. We may say livestock, fish, but at the end of the day, what you are doing is you are producing food. So your entire policy should be, I would produce high quality nutritional food, which is affordable and reaches the table of the consumer in its original state of nutrition and quality. That is where your the ultimate, what to say, a policy statement should be. And then your intervention in terms of various schemes and various programs should center around these things.
Right, sir. Thank you for joining us today on IPR Radio, sir. And as usual, we've had a very, very enlightening and engaging conversation with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sanjoy. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm looking forward to more such interactions in future.
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely. Thank you so much.
All the best.
Thank you.
All the best. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
To be notified of upcoming podcasts, like and subscribe our YouTube channel at IPR Radio today.